Okay. Everyone, greetings and blessings to all of you. And nice to see all of our friends, our children, and everyone of our monthly gathering. Um, uh, I hope that you all had a nice lunch together. And so, of course, it is a night time for me here, but I think it is for you should be daytime, but that is how the whole is. But today I'm glad that I can be part of our monthly gathering and maybe start our discussion today. Does anyone remember what is the topic of our discussion today? Okay, so our topic would be actually a path to purification. Path to purification. So purification, maybe purification is an important way that we can, one of the important ways that we can look at our spiritual development. So our practice, our Dhamma practice can be viewed either as a form of cultivation, which is bhavana, or as a form of purification, which is visuddhi. So we can look at our spiritual practice in both perspectives. In one way, it is a form of cultivation, cultivating our capacities and our skills, our wholesome qualities. That is one way of looking at the spiritual practice. So we engage in enhancing those capacities, like we can enhance our capacity for loving kindness and our skill of mindfulness and our wholesome qualities of patience, compassion. So that's one way of looking at our spiritual practice as a form of cultivation. But at the same time, we can also look at the same practice as a form of purification. And there we talk about how we gradually purify our mind, or get rid of the things, get rid of the dirts, and getting rid and slowly, gradually removing unwholesome qualities, and finally come to a complete purity or visuddhi. So today I thought that maybe we will look at our spiritual practice from that perspective, because the benefit of looking our spiritual practice from that perspective as a form of purification is that the Buddha has given us a very systematic way that we should purify our mind. We should purify the purification has to be done following a particular technique, particular method, particular order. Because our defilements are different kinds and different layers, and then removing them has to be done following a particular order. If we do not follow that order, and we may not be able to completely, remove and purify ourselves. So therefore, so today we will talk about, actually there are 7 gradual stages of purification, but we can, summarize those 7 into 3. So today we will briefly talk about like these 3 forms, and then because the last purity has been explained in 5 different ways. So that's how we got the 7. But before that, I think we all remember, I think many of us can remember there's a famous Buddhist sayings, sometime we can call it the summary of the Buddha's teaching. So in English, we have seen in many places a statement similar to like this: to avoid all evil, to cultivate what is good, and to purify one's mind. And this is the teachings of the Buddhas. Have you come across with this statement of the Buddha? I think in Pali, I think some of you may remember, let's say in Pali we call it, we say it, Sabba Papasa Akaranam. And what are the next lines? Kusalasa Upa Sampada. Yes, thank you. Yes, Sachitta Pariyodapanam Etang Buddhana Sasanam. So this says that this is the teachings of the Buddhas, not only the current Buddha, but also all the Buddhas. What is the teachings of all the Buddhas? Three items here. One is Sabba Papa Sakaranam, avoid all avoid all evil deeds. And then Kusalasa Upasampada, cultivate wholesome qualities. And then Sachitta Pariyodapanam. This is the important part of this Buddha's advice. Purifying one's own mind. Sachitta Pariyodapanam. So in this third line lies the real essence of the practice. So we can ask people, don't do bad things. And we can ask people, do only good things. And we can ask, we can request, we can encourage people to do so. Don't do bad things and do good things. But why people do bad things? And how we can motivate ourselves to do wholesome things? The answer lies in the nature of our mind. No matter how hard or how forcefully we ask people to avoid evil deeds, if we do not provide people with techniques, with methods to purify the inner urges to do bad things, and it's not going to work. Maybe people will stop doing unwholesome deeds due to other, maybe fear of, punishments, or, because of the environment doesn't allow such, things to happen. But I think simply asking people not to do bad things and only do good things will not be that effective if you do not give them the instructions, maybe guidance and tools for the third one, Sachitta Pariyodapanam, to purify one's own mind. It is in this practice, the third practice, the gradual purification of our mind, that we can easily avoid doing bad things and then cultivate wholesome qualities. Therefore, it's really important to pay attention to this aspect of the Buddhist practice to purify our one's own mind. So, Sachitta Pariyodapanam. So today our topic is on that, and I'm going to share with you what we call the seven purifications, or Sattva Visuddhi. There are 7 gradual stages of the purification that we need to do in our spiritual practice. And this is presented in a gradual way. Actually, ultimately, what we all have to do is actually to overcome or maybe replace our ignorance, what we call avidya, with the direct experience of reality, with direct understanding, experiential realization of the reality. And because that's the key, that's what we have to do ultimately when it comes to purity. Because there are 2 main things that we need to train our mind to get rid of. One is the craving, maybe self-centered craving, But the self-centered, whatever the craving that we have is actually based on avidya or ignorance, or let's say blindness, our blindness to the very process of our experience. So therefore, we will not be able to remove our craving if we do not remove avidya. It is through the deep realization that we can get rid of craving. But the issue here is actually how we can get access to our avidya. If we can do it like, directly at once, things should have been much easier for human beings. But the issue here is actually, although ultimately we all have to get rid of ignorance or blindness, that we, as human beings, we all are blind to the very process of our experience. We don't really see how we experience the world. We only see what we experience. And therefore, we will see so many things, we will experience so many things around us, but we don't really see how we actually come to know whatever we see or hear, smell or taste or experience. That whole process of the experience is hidden to us. But we keep experiencing things around us and people around us. But we don't see the very process of that experience. And that's basically what we call ignorance or blindness. And because we don't see the very process of experience, we only see what we experience. And we have distortions, and we tend to think that whatever we experience exists quite permanently. And therefore, once we have that distortion, and we can easily grasp things, we can easily attach to things, we can easily develop craving to things, and then sometimes we can also develop anger and resentment to things, because we tend to believe that those things exist with some permanence. Therefore, we can be resentful to those things. So therefore, the craving is the if the craving is the source of suffering, and we cannot directly remove the craving, we have to remove ignorance or avidya. But again, the problem here is that how we can actually get access to avidya. So therefore, Buddha has given a very systematic process of purification. We have to purify the more outer layer of defilements first, and then we can gradually move into deeper and deeper levels of defilements. In fact, there's another important discourse by the Buddha. Is called dirt washer discourse, or Pansa Dhovaga Sutta, where Buddha described that that our defilements, our impurities in our mind have different layers. The first layer can be called gross impurities, and the second layer can be called moderate impurities. And then we can have fine impurities, and we can have what we call very smooth, really more refined, not refined, but actually more subtle form of impurities. So at least Buddha has given, there are at least 4 layers of impurities. And the simile given by the Buddha is actually the impurities of a gold. Buddha said that, in gold, we can have gross level of impurities, like, sand, gravel, grit. So the dirt washer, maybe the gold washer, first will remove these gross impurities like gravel and grit from gold. That will be the first level of removing the impurity. And second, moderate level of impurities is considered like not like that, gravel or grit, but more fine sand, more fine grit. Once you remove the gross level of sand and grit, and then they still can remain in the gold very fine grit. So the second, in the second effort, second step, the dirt washer will remove those moderate level of impurities. And then it's still it is possible that gold will remain more fine sand, or maybe a very tiny, like a dust. So the dishwasher, I'm sorry, not dishwasher, the dirt washer, so maybe gold washer, will remove those very fine sand and black dust also in as a third step. And then it says that sometime as the last layer, we can also have gold dust. Once you keep removing those impurities, and finally we can even remove some gold dust. And then we also need to remove those things. And only after we remove different layers of impurities, and the gold can be molded and can be used to make different kinds of ornaments. So given that simile, Buddha said that in the same way, in our personality, we can also have gross level of impurities, and then moderate level of impurities, and then more fine layers of impurities. So based on that understanding, and Buddha has given how gradually we can actually keep removing, or like how we can keep purifying our defilements. So in this case, our final goal is to develop the deep insight into the very process of our experience, and to remove our blindness, remove our ignorance. That will be the last goal. But in order to go there, and we have to start getting rid of more gross level of impurities. So therefore, in order for us to facilitate such a very subtle, very delicate kind of surgery that we need to do within ourselves, we should start removing the gross level of impurity. So therefore, Buddha said that first Visuddhi, first purification, is called Sila Visuddhi, the purity of conduct. Purity of conduct, which means that at the beginning, we have to make an effort to train ourselves to have a disciplined conduct in our life, and that can be little bit we have to do it with certain effort, and then with certain discipline. It can be a little bit what we call little bit some kind of determination, and that is the first level of purification, because then though that such kind of moral conduct will be natural to us when we develop our deep wisdom, and we don't even want to make an effort to be moral when we come to the last level of purity. But in order to go there, at the beginning, we had to have more purposeful determination to behave in a particular way, although we may have certain urges to do unwholesome things, but we purposely observe moral precepts and try to behave morally as a step towards to have more deeper level of purity. So therefore, the first level is called Sila Visuddhi, or purity of conduct. There we have to make sure that we will watch our body, watch our speech in a way that we will not harm or hurt anyone. And so the following the 5 basic precepts that you observed this morning, following 5 basic precepts is a part of this purity of moral conduct. And so we have to we will purposefully observe these precepts and promise to ourselves that we will not do these activities that will destroy peace and harmony in my life and society's life. And then once we have such a commitment, and that will bring a purity of our conduct. And then, but of course, Buddha has said that we need to expand that purity to our livelihood also. In the Noble Eightfold Path, we have Samma Ajiva, where we discuss how our way of earning, how our livelihood can also be a part of that. So therefore, we have to make sure that our livelihood is also a righteous, wholesome livelihood, that we will not harm or hurt other beings, even the environment, with our livelihood. So such a purity of conduct is as a form of so first level of purity is like removing the gross level of impurities in the gold, and we are removing the gross level of impurities in our life. So although we may have certain urges to hurt someone or harm someone, or certain urges to take advantage of something, we may still have those urges coming inside, but understanding that such a behavior is not ultimately going to bring peace and happiness to ourselves and to others. So although we have those urges are still occurring in our mind, with some effort, with some understanding, we follow these precepts, and we observe those moral principles, and then bring about such initial purity to our life. First level of purity, Sila Visuddhi, purity of moral conduct. And then once you have such a purity in our moral conduct, what's going to happen is our life going to be less hectic, and it's going to be less complex. It's going to be a little bit more peaceful. So once we have such a moral principles in our life, because the what is really happening with this moral principles is that actually we protect ourselves from a lot of vulnerabilities of having troubles. Because let's say, for example, if we are someone who is going around and cheating other people, and we become vulnerable to so many other troubles and problems and difficulties. So by following those precepts and making a commitment not to do such things, we bring such a peace to our mind, such a simplicity to our life, such an uprightness to our life. So therefore, once we establish this purity in conduct, it brings such a some kind of peace to our life, in simplicity and uprightness, and based on that, actually we can now look into our mind and go to the second level of purity, that is called actually purity of mind, or Chitta Visuddhi. Purity of mind means actually now we can observe the inner urges occurring in us, particularly what we call the 5 hindrances, which we call Nivarana, Pancha Nivarana. And so then we can start to observe and address and even recognize those urges that is occurring in our mind. When we have a certain need or urge or wanting to indulge in certain things, we will notice it. And whenever we want to whenever there's a feeling of resentment and anger and ill will, and we will recognize it. And at the same time, we can also have those feeling of being lazy. It's also hindrance, and we can also have certain maybe other opposite to that. We can have more anxiousness and restlessness. So however, once we establish a kind of moral purity, and then we bring some level of peace, some level of clarity to our life, and then we can look into our own mind and start to observe those habitual patterns that are occurring and repeating in our mind. Because now we are not simply letting those habitual thoughts and patterns, those urges to simply to to motivate us to do all kind of unwholesome behavior. Because of the moral principles, now we can observe our mind. So the second level of purity is called Chitta Visuddhi, where we focus on our own internal activation of internal patterns, and then we engage in meditation. The second level of purity is achieved through forms of meditation, particularly samatha forms of meditation. Samatha forms of meditation means that any meditation that brings calmness to our mind. It could be calmness to our mind. For example, well-known meditation that we all do is loving kindness meditation. And loving kindness meditation is a form of samatha meditation, which brings calmness to our mind, which brings some certain kind of appeasement to our mind, which reduce fluctuation of our mind. So we can do loving kindness meditation. We can do contemplation of the virtues of the Buddha Anusati meditation. And we can also do breathing meditation, Anapanasati. And doing all this meditation, we unify our mind. We bring a certain serenity, certain stillness to our mind. And by doing that, we can remove the more moderate level of impurities, which are the 5 hindrances. Or in other words, the activation of habitual patterns of thoughts occurring in our mind. But it can be done when we have an initial earlier purity, and based using that purity of conduct, and we can engage in pacifying, calming, appeasing our mind, and experiencing deeper level of calmness. And it itself, those levels of calmness themselves are very healing. They are healing to our body. They are healing to our mind. And those levels of, calmness bring different kinds of happiness to our life. Rather than, being happy with indulging our senses, we can actually recognize or discover a realm within us that we are really, in a way, joyful, in a way more settled, by practicing these forms of meditation and calming our mind and enjoying the joy of calmness, which may not be as exciting as we will indulge in some pleasure, but this joy that comes from concentrated mind is more enduring and more peaceful. So that's the second level of purity. And then we can, once you develop, such calmness, such stability or steadiness, such unification of the mind, then only we can use our mind to directly look into the real issue. The real issue is the ignorance. Therefore, the third purity is called purification of view, or Ditti Visuddhi. Ditti Visuddhi is actually initial purification of our wrong view. They actually, with such an steadied, unified mind, we can observe our own idea of self, and then look into the very process of our body and mind. And once we start to watch the process of body and mind, we will observe both our bodily states and also mental states are in constant flow. They are constantly changing, shifting, moving. And once you directly observe that, observe in calm mind, we can observe how any physical sensation is constantly changing, moving, shifting, never remaining the same for a moment. And we can also observe our own thoughts. Our own thought patterns are keep changing, moving, shifting. Once you directly observe that constant change happening in the body and mind, and then we can develop this understanding that what we call I is actually a constantly changing process. So therefore, we purify our view. We purify our wrong view, and we purify what you call personality view, or Sakkaya Ditti. That the strong belief of permanent, separate person lying inside of us. So we will be able to remove such a belief and then develop more direct experience of this changing, shifting nature of ourselves as the third level of purification. But that happens as a result of purification of the mind, or chitta visuddhi, as a result of developing such a calm, unified mind. So, but it is start with sila visuddhi, purity of moral conduct, and of course then after third visuddhi, which is ditti visuddhi, and then we have four more other forms of purities or purification, which are actually going into deeper and deeper level of wisdom, and then I think there are those in other forms of purification are very technical. Maybe I can briefly mention them and maybe briefly summarize, briefly translate them to you. But basically it is showing that how we can start with moral purification and then move into more mental purifying purity of the mind. That means purifying the five hindrances, agitated state of the mind, and then move into develop more deep understanding. So after ditti visuddhi, or purification of the view, then we can go in further into purification. We can purify what you call purification by overcoming doubt, or kanka vitarana visuddhi. That really means that we develop a deep understanding into the paticca samuppada, the dependent origination and conditionality of our experience, and then how our any bodily states or mental states are actually produced through causes and conditions, and deeply understanding the conditionality of our experiences, of our existence. And then we develop, once we directly see it, and then we remove any doubt about our, the actual function of our existence. And then we can go into further and further levels of clarity. And this next purification is called purification by knowledge and vision of what is path and not path. And this level of purification is actually related to our meditative experiences. Sometimes when we experience deeper level of calmness, very serene level of calmness, we can sometimes mislead. We can take those meditative peaceful states as the final attainment of our purity, because those peaceful meditative states can be so peaceful, so serene, and many meditators, many spiritual teachers have stopped there, thinking that such calmness, such concentration, tranquility is the final goal. So, but with wisdom, deep understanding, those are like a refined, like in the gold, we have fine sand. In that way, we can deeply understand that even those peaceful states that I'm experiencing in meditation are actually causally produced with the effort. And therefore, they are not necessarily permanent states. They are actually also constructed states, although they are peaceful. So developing that understanding, and even like not satisfying with such peaceful state and going beyond them, and even analyzing the conditional state of peaceful state of the mind, so we can go into further and further level of purity. And the sixth purity is called purification by knowledge and vision of the course of practice, or patipada jnana dassana visuddhi. And that is where we actually, it's more like a mature pace of understanding the arising and passing away of everything. So these are like developing more clarity of this, what is really happening within us. In this level of purity is actually having a direct experience that any states, any mental or physical states within ourselves actually don't really exist. They're actually arising and passing away at every moment. is now you develop this understanding. It's not only changing, but actually they are arising and passing away. More close understanding of the whole idea of impermanence. In the beginning, impermanence is like changing and shifting. But the more closer vision we have of the impermanence, actually impermanence is not even changing actually. It's actually arising and passing away. Arising and passing away, arising and passing away. That's really happening. We will experience it at the initial level as change, but at this level of purification, we will directly experience how mental and physical stress are arising, and then how they are passing away. And then once we have that, then we will have the final level of purification, what we call purification by knowledge and vision, or jnana, dassana, visuddhi, where we directly address our blindness, our avidya, our ignorance, and completely remove that ignorance and come to a complete purity. So the last 5 stages, five or maybe 4 stages of purification can be very subtle, very technical, but I think general idea is actually our spiritual path. When you look at from the perspective of purification, and it is done through a gradual process, because we are actually dealing with the different layers of defilements in our mind, and those layers has to be addressed in different ways. And at the level of moral conduct, purity of moral conduct, we are dealing with the more gross level of defilements, which are actually more like spilling level of defilements. So at the level of chitta visuddhi, purification of mind, we are dealing with a little bit moderate level of impurities, which are like 5 hindrances, and what we call more ascending. Yeah, and then at the last 5 levels of purification, we are addressing very subtle form of defilements, basically related to our misunderstanding, and then we are gradually removing them and developing more direct experience to the process of experience happening with us, and then ultimately we will remove the ignorance. And then once you remove the ignorance and there's no basis for a craving to exist, any other defilements to exist, and then when you don't have them, you don't there's no motivation for anyone to do bad deeds, or like you don't have to purposefully observe any those moral conduct, but that happens naturally. But in order to do that, we have to go through this gradual levels of purification. Once you go to the bottom, and once you get rid of the ignorance, and then the other purity will become very natural to us. But this is the path. This is the path to purification. We can be in different levels of our path, and that this doesn't mean that we have to complete our moral purity of moral conduct in order to go to the next level of purity, which is the purity of the mind, purity of purifying our mind from fluctuating, agitated state of the mind. We don't have to wait until one level is complete. We can continue to we can start purifying those things, but to the extent that we are purified with our moral conduct, to that extent we are able to purify our mind from habitual patterns of thinking. To the extent that we have calmed our mind, to that extent we can have a direct insight and experience to our own process of experience. So, but this is the path to purification. And so we have an important text called Visuddhi Magga, which has also the translation of the title is Path to Purification. And that whole book is explaining this, 7 stages of enlightenment. It says 7 stages of purification. But this is also found in the direct discourse of the Buddha. But I hope that we will understand this gradual aspect of our practice, and in order to remove more subtle, more refined, more deep-rooted defilements, first we need to work with a more gross level of behavior, unwholesome behavior, and then more obvious thoughts, and then only we can adjust the more subtle levels of defilements. So I hope that you got some understanding of these different levels. So remember, the first one is Sila Visuddhi, purity of moral conduct, and next one is Chitta Visuddhi, purity of purification of mind from hindrances, and then Ditti Visuddhi, purification of views, and then we have 4 others forms of Visuddhi that are related to wisdom. Okay, so this is what I have today to share with you, and maybe we can start some discussion on those purifications and more. If you like to know a little bit more, if you have any other questions, so we will do it now.
How do you know which level of purity you are? Like, is there a way for you to know so that you yourself can work towards? Sorry, can you hear? Work
Yes.
towards cleaning yourself or purifying yourself. Yeah.
Actually, the first 2 levels of purification we can purposefully start and do it, and then the third and the rest of the stages of purification, which are related to developing more wisdom, that has to be done once we are quite okay with the first 2 levels. So as I mentioned, in the purity of conduct, it's basically uh, making sure that our behavior is not hurting or harming anyone or anything, and then following these precepts. But and also making sure that our livelihood is also very righteous. But at the same time, there's also one very important moral conduct that we usually ignore. That is called Indriya Sangvara Sila. That is the moral conduct with regard to our senses. Because that is because it is through senses, is it through like visual forms, sounds, and tastes, and all these sensory objects that we open the door for more, defilements to arise in our mind. So the guarding the senses, or Indriya Sangvara, guarding the senses is also a very important part of this moral purity. I think as practicing, people, I think we are quite okay with our 5 precepts. We are also quite okay with our, righteous livelihood. But I think what we need to pay a little bit more attention is that how much, how much, how I guard my senses. Do I really guard my senses? Do I really pay attention to what I see or hear, smell, and taste? Have I simply, allow anything to come, and as whatever I see and smell without any guard, I just keep thinking about those things I have seen or heard, and then developing more and more defilements? Or am I paying attention to making sure that to which one I should pay attention, which one I should not pay attention? So I think the guard in the senses is a very important practice of moral purity that we need to do, because if we keep guarding our senses, like it's simply saying that, not really keep thinking, do not think about everything that we see. Do not, allow, your mind to, think about everything that you hear. We have to be mindful of what we hear, smell, taste, and then make a decision which one I should invest my time, which one I should engage in thinking over again. Because we will encounter so many things to our senses. most of the things are not important or relevant to us, but we keep thinking about them. We develop anger, we develop, desire or lust, we develop all kind of other defilements based on what we encounter through our senses, because we have no protection. There's no guard. There's no secondary evaluation. What kind of, to which one I should pay attention to which one I should, give my time. It happens without any control, any management. So therefore, I think that level of sila, that level of moral conduct is very important, because once we have such a, purity, and then it will be much easier for us to meditate really well and experience deeper level of calmness. So I think that will be the area that we need to pay our attention to. And then of course, in meditation, we know that how much, what is the level of calmness we can develop in meditation. Some days it may be difficult, some days it may come easier. But as if you keep meditating, we see the development and growth of our ability to stay calm and stay peaceful during the meditation and even after the meditation. That is something that we can evaluate by ourselves after we practice meditation for some time. So then whatever calmness that we have, and that will help us to have this insightful wisdom gradually. Is it clear?
I have two questions. The first, thank you. The first question, what is the difference between Vicikiccha and Vitarana Visuddhi? And after doing the first two Visuddhis, Sila and Chitta, so it almost looks like this can be obtained through Samatha meditation. So does that imply that the rest of the five Visuddhis could be obtained through Vipassana? Thank you.
Exactly. Yeah, thank you for that question. Yes, definitely. The last five forms of purification to be achieved through practicing more Vipassana type of meditation. Actually, in the Ditti Visuddhi and Kanka Vitarana Visuddhi, they are closely connected. And through Ditti Visuddhi, we remove Sakkaya Ditti, the personality view, the wrong belief of separate I. And then Kanka Vitarana Visuddhi is actually related to Vicikiccha. The Kanka and Vicikiccha means the doubt or maybe uncertainty. And so this is actually presenting the same teaching in a slightly different terminology. So once we completely purify our Ditti and Kanka Vitarana Visuddhi, we are at the level of not completely, and that is similar to removing Sakkaya Ditti and Vicikiccha. So this is actually presenting the same spiritual growth from a different terminology. So it is correct, that last four levels of purity has to be attained through more like directly experiencing our process of experience through the Vipassana techniques. Of course, when we talk our spiritual path from this perspective, we only talk about what we are getting rid of, what we are removing, but also we can look at the same process through, as I told you earlier, from the perspective of development or cultivation bhavana, where we pay more attention to the positive qualities that we are developing. But here we pay attention to what we are getting rid of.
Hello, Bhante. It's Adrienne. And my question is around a personal experience that I've had recently, but it's repeated itself. It's a pattern that has shown up throughout my life. And as you know, I'm deeply involved in taking care of my elderly mother and have been for a very long time now. And things are getting much more complicated with her conditions. The conditions within the state that she lives, the state of Florida, are extraordinarily complex and cruel at this time. And I just returned from a journey there, a caregiving journey there, where pretty much the tender structure of care that I've been building over the years fell apart like a house of cards as my mother's condition is getting worse. And I found myself on very unstable ground and practicing really less than skillful behavior. She has the very beguiling condition of dementia, and I feel like there's a lot of dementia going on at the state level there. And so let's say I was less than skillful. And in my my most extraordinary place of being less than skillful, something happened for me, which was a point of surrender. The kinds of things that I was trying to affect and change and control, I just simply let go of. And what I found on the heels of that was the years of practice and learning and working at these purification practices. The floodgates opened up and a sort of freedom rushed through. And I found myself at that point of utter surrender advancing to a new level of calmness, of understanding, of equanimity, and of spaciousness of heart, mind, and soul and body, so that I could start making decisions and start taking actions from that larger, more expansive place. And quite frankly, much more love coming through, especially in respect to my mother. So I just wondered if you could speak to that place, that point where, you know, we cry uncle and we just say, okay, enough. I've done everything I can from my side. I am failing, and I let go. And that whoosh that comes through, and that change, that shift that takes place within us. So we all of a sudden have a capacity to actually expand and do more in a much more skillful way.
Yeah. Thank you very much, Adrian, for sharing, that, personal experience. And first of all, we express our, our appreciation, for your dedicated, effort to take care of your mom. And it's not easy, you have been doing it for many years, and it's such an encouraging, it's such an inspiring thing for us. It teaches a lot of things to all of our community, how much, caring and how much dedication we had to do with regard to our beloved, parents. And I think, first of all, please accept our empathy and our appreciation of your great effort. And the secondly, I think I'm really glad to hear about your experience that, that in a way you kind of experience this surrender and then this letting go of the, outcome of the effort. And then it happens, maybe it looks like it happens because you are overwhelmed by so many obstacles, right? And then, it's almost like you kind of have to give up. But it didn't happen as a way of giving up with a certain level of resentment or anger, but it happened a form of letting go. I think this is a very good experience. Definitely, I think what is really happening whenever we want to help someone, and particularly when we care for someone, and even in a simple act of helping someone without our knowing, we develop this sense of control sometimes. Like we like, when we help someone, we want certain outcome from that, right? And we expect certain outcome from our help. And of course, we expect certain behavior from the receiver of our help. But of course, in your case, I think you are making this effort, but you also deal with the whole system, not only with the individual, but also with the system. So in your case, even the very system is not incorporating with you. But I think it's really important to observe how we have this sense of control in our mind in a very unconscious level whenever we help and care someone. And it's really important to detect that and then notice it and then release that. Because otherwise, again, it's going to be very stressful. Very stressful. I think our compassion can continue only when we have equanimity underneath. Because we can have a compassion. We like to relieve suffering of other people, the people that we know, people that we even don't know. We all want to everyone to be free from suffering. So we can work on that. We can do our best on that. But at the same time, we need to understand that we will not be able to remove suffering of all people. There is always a limitation what we can do. There are so many other causes and conditions that produce such suffering states to people. Could be individual conditions, social condition, environmental condition, even some condition coming from our karma. So therefore, when we want to help someone and be compassionate, we can be easily exhausted if you do not have equanimity, which is we keep helping, we give our effort to keep helping, but at the same time we have this deep understanding that ultimately these things have their own way, and I'm trying to intervene, and my intervention may work in certain way and maybe not the way that I would like it to see. My intervention may be effective, sometimes maybe not effective, but we have to have that acceptance of whatever condition. We make our effort to help, and whatever condition comes after that, whether it is the way we expect it or not, we have to have that attitude to acceptance, what we call equanimity. So definitely our compassion can continue only when we have equanimity as underneath. I think I'm glad to hear that you also use the word spaciousness, that when you accept this condition and understand that I will not be able to do as I wish to do things, but I only do what I can do within this system, within my capacities, but that's okay. And then you also experience kind of spaciousness in that surrender, in that acceptance. It looks like our mind is free, and so maybe we can observe other avenues that maybe we can be more helpful. So thank you for sharing that. I just think that that your sharing can help all of us to understand our subtle dirt, subtle impurities that we can have even when we help others. It's not something to be blamed, it's something that we need to recognize, that this sense of control, sense of expectations. So it's really important we let go of those things and keep helping. So we will still chant for you and for your mom. Thank you for bringing that out. So we have few children with us today, right? Yeah. And do you wash your own clothes? And do you wash your plates? Yes.
Hi,
Can
Bhante. It's Devin. I raised my hand.
Oh, sorry. Oh, sorry. I
At the
think
last
it is Devan. Okay, sorry. Yeah.
So that is part of my question. So, speaking of, purifying yourself and your mind, fear is something that is really powerful and can act, that are maybe not best serving ourselves or others. So, do you have any thoughts or words of wisdom on how we can help to purify ourselves from fear?
Yeah, Devan, can you repeat your question again? The sound was breaking. I didn't hear it clearly.
Sure. Guidance on how we can purify ourselves from fear or self-doubt.
Yeah, from fear.
Yes, fear.
Actually, in these 7 forms of purification, there's no direct reference to fear. The only will be maybe anxiousness. Anxiousness could be one of the hindrances that we are purifying at the second level of purity. So fear is not actually viewed as a defilement in the Buddhist context, Buddhist teaching. Fear is not a defilement. It is quite natural. And of course, ultimately we have to be fearless. We have to find ways to, get rid of fear, because fear can also be a bias. We can do things in a biased way because of the fear. But other than that, it is not considered a defilement that we need to somehow get rid of. It's simply, fear is like a message. Like it's more like a indicator that we need to pay our attention to. Yeah. But I think, it's something that ultimately, we need to we need to overcome, because we need more, we need to have more deeper peace and calmness. So how to get rid of fear? Although it's not something, with this so as a defilement, but something we can get rid of. Of course, the best way is actually there's a very interesting discourse of the Buddha, where Buddha himself, how Buddha himself get rid of the fear. When he was meditating by himself in the deep forest, when he was still practitioner, still seeker, he had a lot of bad experiences, like strange sounds occurring in different parts of the forest in the very dark night. And he really got, fearful, afraid of those sounds. But one day he decided to really, explore those sounds. So he was actually purposefully going to the places where he hear the sound, and those, wearisome they are those. And so he purposely went and he really wanted to understand what are these sounds and what are these, bad experiences. And then what he found actually, when he was really exploring and having some courage and exposing himself to those so-called dangerous things, he found actually those the sounds, and this, like very difficult, experience, actually natural occurrences. It's not like someone. It's not really dangerous. It's maybe, some creatures are making those sounds, maybe some branches are, rubbing each other and making these sounds. And so he realized that nothing to be fear of. But what he did was actually he exposed himself to those things that he was afraid with some courage. So maybe that could be something that we have to do, but maybe we need some help from others. If we have some fear, it depends on, certain situation, but let's say if we are afraid of something, maybe the best thing will be get someone's help and, try to expose ourselves to that and directly See that is there any really something that brings fear. So exposing ourselves to that thing that we fear with with certain help, with certain support, may be the way to get rid of fear.
Thank you, Bhante.
So I was asking our children, do you wash your own plates after you meal? Yes or not? If yes, you can raise your hand. I can see. Do you wash your own plates after you eat? Yeah, when you wash something, we have to use proper ingredients, proper, what do you call one, the proper liquid or proper detergent. We have to use proper detergent to wash anything clean. So in the same way, actually, when we want to purify our life, we have to make sure that we use the proper detergent. Yeah. So sometimes, because we think that we have different concepts of purity. Sometimes we think that human beings used to believe that if you go to a particular place, if you take a bath in a holy place, you will be purified. And so we try to do a lot of external things to purify ourselves. But actually, Buddha said that the real way to purify ourselves is not necessarily doing things externally, but actually directly addressing our behavior and our mind. Okay. Okay, Bhante. Before we end it, I want to share with you. Today, I went to Bhante Punna's temple. Bhante Punna's original monastery is in down south, in the coastal area. But I'm in the northwest, northeast. So this morning, early morning, I left and I reached Bhante's place, and he had a nice birthday dana. There were nearly 100 monks attended that dana ceremony, and there were also a lot of people. We really had a good time. I met Bhante Punna's teachers, his monastic brothers, and also his own siblings. And of course, we know that Bhante's parents are not living anymore. So we thought about his parents, and we shared merits and expressed our gratitude to his parents. And it was a nice celebration because that is Bhante Punna's 50th birthday.
Wow.
Although it doesn't look 50, but that is today. Today is his 50th birthday. You can, send him you can still send him a message. And it is 50th birthday, so we had a nice celebration. So we will also wish Bhante Punna, good health and more opportunities for him to practice and help so many people.
I tried to contact him Bhante for this meeting, but I couldn't anyway. So in our blessing chant, we will extend our...
I think, yeah, in the evening also, he's also doing a chanting of Satipatthana Sutta, and so he has a lot of programs. Okay, everyone, and I'm so nice to see you all. I'm so glad that our monthly gathering is becoming very, very well attended, and I hope that I don't know whether the reason is the food or the discussion, but anyway. Whether it's food or the discussion, I'm so glad that everyone is here. Nice to see our Sue Upeka is back from North Carolina, right? Yeah, she's back. Nice to see you, everyone. And nice to see our children. also. And Bhante would like to do the other program. Would you like to excuse me?
Sorry, we had a question in YouTube from a YouTube friend. At what level one would start to develop wisdom? The one question. Then from Chitta Visuddhi onwards, or after Ditti Visuddhi?
Yeah, I think is Ditti Visuddhi is the beginning of the developing of wisdom. Ditti Visuddhi is the beginning of the developing wisdom. All other 4 stages are related to developing of the wisdom. The question is that at what point we start developing of the wisdom. Actually, we are developing wisdom, all the time. More we practice. But here is that to the extent we purify our moral conduct and our mental tranquility, to that extent we will have the wisdom. We can start developing wisdom at any time. But to the extent other purities develop, to that extent we will develop the wisdom. So Ditti Visuddhi is the beginning of the development of wisdom.
It's also gradually we have to develop, right, Bhante, from the beginning.
Yeah, starting from the Sila Visuddhi. But actually we had to have right view, like Samma Ditti, because initially we need to understand that ultimately what we need to get rid of, when you think about like Four Noble Truths, the second truth is craving, self-centered craving is the immediate cause of suffering. But then again, that self-centered craving is based on the avidya, ignorance. So that's what we need to get rid of. So we have to have right view. This is where I'm going. But then once you have right view, your practice start with moral behavior. Yeah, so it has to be gradual. Otherwise, we will not be able to have an access, even to have any idea of ignorance. It has to be gradual.
Okay. So I think, Bhante, even this kind of a program that we are spending a short period of time today as a spiritual community. So I think to some extent, as a primary stage of practicing these 7 purities, I think, right, Bhante, we can use this opportunity. Because we started this program, any program we are starting observing 5 precepts, then kind of Sila Visuddhi, purity of moral conduct. Then Chitta Visuddhi, now we are going to practice a meditation, short few minutes. And
even chanting also bring calmness and some purity to our mind. Chanting.
Okay, Bhante, thank you very much. So any sharing, any comments? No. So thank you very much. I know that you are somewhat tired today, so you have to travel from
It is 12 o'clock now.
Yeah. So thank you very much. Appreciate your time and dedication for us.
Yeah, thank you. There are so many people here, but I only can see some of them, but I really appreciate your participation. And I really like to see our children, I think we have Siddharth and Maitri, we have Timali and Vasari, and we have Shakya, and who else?
Our friend Kobe and Isis, they are also here.
He's also here. Oh, nice to hear Kobe is here. Okay. And Isis also here. Yeah.
Okay, so Bhante, I am going to conclude the YouTube live stream now. But if you wish, Bhante, you can wait a little bit.
Yeah. Okay, so nice to see you all, and